Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
Toby tugged at my sleeve just as the librarian handed out felt crowns to the preschoolers. "Dad," he whispered, eyes wide and locked on the woman sitting cross-legged in front of the kids. "That's Mom." My spine lit up like jumper cables hit it. I looked where he pointed. No. Hell no. She had the same voice, same dead-on posture, same way of pressing her lips tight when a toddler screamed near her ear. I blinked hard, tried to reset, but the pitch in her voice, the way her shoulder tensed before she smiled, that was Ivy. She'd been dead 5 years. "Ivy's gone, bud," I muttered, but I was already sweating through the back of my shirt. Before we go further, share in the comments, how's your day going and where you're joining from. And let's continue. My name's Ryan. I'm 36. I run a small print and copy shop off Troost Avenue in Kansas City. I've got a kid, a checklist system, and not much else since Ivy passed in August of 2020. Or passed. I kept telling myself I was being irrational. A rational guy doesn't flinch at a woman reading corduroy. A rational guy remembers the urn we set up at St. Martin's. I kept the memorial program in a manila folder in the shop safe. August 15th, Thursday morning, 2 hymns, no flowers per Ivy's wishes. The whole thing. That woman, Clara, Paige later called her, smiled at a kid and handed her a sticker sheet. Toby was still staring, not blinking. "She saw me," he said in the car, clutching a crumpled napkin from the library. "She smiled. Like she knew me, Dad." I took him to get fries, tried to change the subject, asked about his class hamster, the math test, whatever I could think of. Didn't work. "She breathed in before she laughed," he said around a fry. "Mom did that. Exactly like that." By the time we got home, my chest felt like I'd swallowed a box of wires. I stepped over stacked boxes of shop invoices and stared up at the shelf in the hallway, where the urn sat, cold and untouched, next to the folded church bulletin. That urn was never filled. I remember the exact words the church office said. "Due to transfer restrictions, a symbolic vessel may be substituted. Ivy wanted cremation, but we never submitted the permit." I remember sitting in the church office, numb, nodding while Hazel, her mom, handled the signatures. And Hazel hadn't been seen since the day after the service. She left town, said she couldn't handle the memories, never visited, never called. My fingers started twitching. I needed order. I grabbed a legal pad and wrote 3 columns. What I know. Ivy died August 2020. Memorial at St. Martin's. Symbolic urn. Church said cremains require permit. Hazel handled paperwork. What I don't know. Who that woman was at story time. Why she looked and sounded exactly like Ivy. Why Toby keeps seeing her. What I can verify. Library event staff. Video footage. Any name tied to that event. Then came the worst part. I remembered Toby saying he saw Mom a few days earlier, outside school pickup. I told him he was tired. Maybe he wasn't. That night, right on cue at 6:10, my dad called. Harvey, retired Air Force. Suit and tie even on Sundays. Still runs on a goddamn mission clock. "Time for you to find a mother for that boy," he said, not cruel, just blunt. "Boys need softness. You don't have that in your toolbox, son." I didn't argue. He wasn't wrong. I tucked Toby in, told him the monster spray under the bed was extra strength. He nodded, half asleep, still gripping that napkin like a lifeline. I sat at the kitchen table, pen in hand, eyes fixed on that goddamn urn. Opened a new list. Library staff name, security cameras, story time schedule, ask neutral questions, keep emotion out. I didn't even realize my hands were shaking until ink smeared across the page. Looking back, I should have known I was already in too deep. Next morning, I showed up at the library before the doors even unlocked. The sky was still that pale October gray that never quite commits to daylight, and I was gripping a gas station coffee the size of my forearm like it could hold me upright. The children's librarian was taping a new flyer to the glass. Mid-30s, smart posture, eyes that didn't miss much. Paige Keller. I introduced myself, said I was the guy from Saturday. "Ah," she said without needing the rest. "You're the one with the boy who wouldn't blink." I gave a half smile. "That's him. I've got a weird question if you've got a sec." Paige tilted her head, didn't look surprised. "Try me." I asked who the woman was that read during story time. "She's not staff," Paige said. "Name on file is Clara Dent. She volunteers sometimes. Part-time event manager, mostly corporate stuff. Kansas plates. Quiet, polite, always brings her own hand sanitizer." I felt something lurch behind my ribs. I told myself it was indigestion from drive-through hash browns. Toby walked in right behind me, didn't say a word, just pointed at the bulletin board behind Paige's desk. There was a flyer, full color, shiny paper. "She left that," he said. "Same lady. It's for a gala or something." I stared at the flyer like it might start talking. Elegant script, fake gold foil, and a logo I hadn't seen in years. Ivy used to manage events just like this before she got sick. Before the nosebleeds, the endless billing calls, the hospice nurse named Joy who never smiled. Paige looked between us and saw it hit. I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. My face gave it away. "We have cameras," she said simply, tapping the side of her monitor. "Public building. You can request the footage. Start with a form." She said it like she was offering me a parachute. I was halfway through filling out the footage request, print name, date, time block, signature, when my phone buzzed. Chicago number. Unknown. I almost let it go to voicemail. "Mr. Danner?" a clipped voice asked. "This is Taryn Voss. I'm a claims investigator contracted through Equisure. I need to ask you a few things about a suspended life insurance policy tied to your late wife, Ivy." The pen fell out of my hand. She said the original claim, $240,000, was filed through an online broker, then rerouted to a bank in Topeka. Inactive since September 2020. "Until this March," Taryn said. "Someone tried to reopen it. The executor name changed. Same social, same DOB, different signature. I told her Ivy was never cremated, that the church said we'd need to file for ashes transport, and we never did. That Hazel said we'd do a symbolic urn, and that's what we buried." Taryn hummed through her teeth. "Doesn't matter if she was cremated. What matters is, a body was legally declared. You held a service. You filed paperwork. And someone just tried to cash that back in." Paige overheard the word insurance and didn't miss a beat. She pulled a binder from under the desk, flipped to a tab marked Records and Requests, and started typing like she'd done it 100 times. "You'll want a city permits record," she said. "Also a cemetery registration inquiry and a formal request to the sexton of St. Martin's. I'll pull a sample letter. 10 minutes. I can't file it for you. Policy," she added, "but I'll show you exactly where to click and what to ask for." I told her I appreciated it, that I didn't want to make a scene. She smiled without looking up. "It's a library, man. The scene is a whisper." While she printed the letter draft, I took Toby to the back corner near the puzzles. He kept glancing toward the windows. I asked him what he was looking for. "She might come back," he said quietly. "She left fast last time." I didn't have anything to say to that. When we walked out, I spotted Hazel through the glass entry, bent over a canvas tote stuffed with fabric, gray roots showing through her dyed auburn hair, lips pursed like she was biting down words. I hadn't seen her since the memorial. 5 years. She was the one who held my arm when I couldn't stand during the last hymn. Her eyes met mine, and for half a second she looked like a woman who'd seen a ghost. Then she grabbed her tote and bolted for the side exit. Didn't look back. Didn't call my name. I didn't follow. I went home, set Toby up with homework, and opened my shop ledger, pushed invoices aside, grabbed my legal pad, and started a new checklist. Hazel spotted at library. Clara Dent, event manager. Gala flyer matches Ivy's past work. Security footage exists. Insurance claim paused and reopened. Executor changed names. I stared at the line that read, Executor M. Hazel Grant. Martha. Not Hazel. Same daub. Same signature curl. I didn't sleep. My head wouldn't shut up. My chest felt like the walls were closing in, but nobody else noticed. Something was cracking open, and I had no idea how far down it went. At 8:14 the next morning, Paige emailed a short records request template titled, Start Here, plus links to the city's public permits portal. She'd run a quick name search on the public site, no FOIA needed, and turned up a seasonal use cottage at Brookside Lake Cottages, Lot 29, co-signed by Hazel Grant. Filed in April. Final inspection closed out 12 weeks ago. Separate mailing address. I hadn't told her about that address. She found it in the open records. So Hazel was signing things again, under her real name, not hiding it, not even trying. I didn't want Toby riding the bus that day, didn't want him drifting through his routine like everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. I left work early, told the after-school desk I was his dad, and they didn't even ask for ID. They recognized me. He came out holding a folder and an orange. As soon as his shoes hit the sidewalk, he said, She was there again. I saw her between the shelves. She had her hair down this time. My chest went tight. Where exactly? In the kids' stacks. She smelled like lemon cleaner again. The same goddamn cleaner Ivy used to spray in the kitchen like it was holy water. We drove straight to the library. No detour. No distractions. Paige was behind the desk, organizing a stack of donation books. She spotted us and nodded toward the side room with the computers. Come with me, she said. I queued up the weekend security feed. She wheeled over a monitor, clicked through a few folders, and pulled up 3 angled camera views. The footage was grainy, black and white. Paige didn't speak. She just hit play. There she was. Clara. One angle showed her kneeling beside a toddler in a dinosaur hoodie, pointing to something in a picture book. She smiled, nodded, then stood up and turned, just enough for a clean profile. That jawline, that posture, the way she fiddled with her necklace when the kids squealed too loud. Ivy used to do that, always the necklace when she got overstimulated. My lungs betrayed me. I forgot how to breathe. Paige paused the frame and zoomed. She didn't say anything, just looked at me, then gave a silent, slow nod. Toby pressed his hand to the glass. She saw me, he whispered, voice catching like he wasn't sure if he should cry or yell. Paige reached for the volume and turned it down like that could protect him from what he already knew. Right then, my phone rang. Taryn again. She got straight to it. Executor of record for the suspended claim is listed as M. Hazel Grant. Same DOB as Hazel. At the memorial, she signed everything as Martha H. Grant. I said nothing. My brain was stuck between wanting to scream and needing to listen. That's a red flag, she continued. And there's more. The paperwork filed with the cremation listing references a transfer to Ridgeway Crematory in mid-August, but Ridgeway shows no intake for that week. Nothing? I asked. Not a single entry. No remains delivered. No pickup. Either someone made a clerical error or someone faked the entire process. I couldn't sit down. I leaned against the desk, fist to my mouth. Then Taryn dropped one more thing, like it was casual. Also, your wife's previous employer? She was contracted briefly by a company called Brend Import Export. That name cracked through my skull. Malcolm Brend. I'd printed his museum event brochures for years. Gold foil, heavy cardstock, no questions asked. He paid cash. Always rushed. He liked images of Greek statuary and over-the-top fonts. I thought he was just some flashy art freak. Taryn went on. Brend's company shows up on multiple international watch lists. Antiquities crossings, import violations, unverified charitable fronts. You name it. I felt sick. I called my dad. He didn't sigh or bark. He just said, "Bring the boy over in 15. Wear a jacket. We'll do this on the clock. That was his way of saying, don't stall, don't spin, just move. I left Toby with him, then went back to the shop and sat with my checklist. The new page was shaking in my hands. Clara, confirmed on footage. Toby recognized her again. FOIA address, Lot 29, Brookside. Hazel co-signed remodel. Ivy's old boss connected to flagged import-export company. Cremation record, check blank. Insurance executor, Hazel, Martha. I tapped my pen on the edge of the desk until the plastic cracked. Paige texted me just before closing. Hey, if you need help with city permit research or church records, let me know. Already bookmarked some leads. No pressure. I stared at the message, then added 3 more lines. Talk to Hazel. Keep Toby out of library. Don't scare Paige. That last one, maybe it was stupid. Maybe she didn't scare easy. But something about her stepping into this like it was second nature made me nervous. Like she knew how deep this hole went already and wasn't flinching. And I wasn't sure who I was trying to protect anymore. Her, Toby, or whatever was left of the story I thought I understood. I didn't sleep again that night. Didn't even try. I spotted Hazel crouched on the cracked sidewalk outside St. Luke's thrift sale, hands buried in a box of donated zippers like she was sifting for gold. She wore a faded blue sweatshirt with the church logo peeling off and a knit cap despite the warm wind. For a second, she looked like any other volunteer, anonymous and small. Hazel, I said, loud enough to cut through the car noise. She jerked like I'd hit her. Her fingers froze mid-sift. I held my palms up so she could see them. I'm not here to fight, I said. I just need to know. Is Clara Ivy? Her eyes went glassy, all the color sliding out. Don't, she said, voice like tissue paper tearing. You don't want any of this. I stepped closer but stopped short of the table. I already have it, I said. There's a claim sitting on Ivy's name, 240 grand. Toby saw her twice, at the library, in the stacks. She smiled at him. Hazel stared at my shoes like she was reading something there. Then she whispered, don't let her talk to him. She'll have reasons, lists, policies. She always does. I swallowed hard. Hazel, stop with the riddles. Just tell me what's going on. Her lips trembled. She always had that compliance voice, risk, exposure, optics. She'd used those exact words at our wedding when Ivy was planning the seating chart. Now she sounded like a woman trying to chew through a lock. She faked it, Hazel said finally, barely audible. My ears rang like a siren went off. She nodded toward the bus sign across the street. A memorial, an urn with nothing in it. The church handled it like a box of candles. I let it happen. I was weak. My vision narrowed to a tunnel. You let her fake her own death? Hazel wiped at her nose, smearing makeup. There's a little girl, Evelyn. She looks just like Toby did at 4. I let Ivy tell you we lost one. It was a lie. I never told you because shame makes you stupid. I gripped the edge of the table, trying not to raise my voice. So she's been alive this whole time? Raising a kid? Hazel shook her head, eyes darting at the church doors. She's not raising her. She's using her. Same as she uses everything. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Shopline forwarded to my cell. I stepped back and answered, expecting a client. A man's voice, smooth, clipped. Mr. Danner, this is Reed Carver, counsel for parties you've recently harassed. I'm calling to warn you about defamation exposure and potential civil liability. I pressed the phone tighter. Excuse me? You're making statements that interfere with contractual obligations, he said. There are compliance risks, tortious interference issues, and possible chain of custody violations related to materials you've accessed. I felt my stomach flip. That was Ivy's language, but in a law firm's throat. Who are you representing? I asked. He didn't answer, just repeated, cease and desist your activities or you'll face consequences. Then the line went dead. Hazel saw my face drain. That'll be Reed, she said softly. The fixer. He keeps the plates spinning. I pocketed the phone, knuckles white. Why now? Why call me now? She reached for another zipper, but her hand shook so bad she dropped it. Because you're close. And she's scared. And scared makes her mean. I couldn't stand there any longer. I told Hazel I'd be back and walked to my truck before my voice broke. By the time I reached the library to pick up Toby, my head was a radio full of static. Paige was behind the desk shelving books. She took one look at me and put her phone face down. What happened? She asked quietly. I told her everything in low bursts. The claim, Hazel, Evelyn, the call from Reed Carver. Her eyes didn't widen. She didn't give me pity. She just listened like she was building a file in her head. When I finished, she opened her laptop and started typing. I don't do mystic talk, she said. I do plans. Here's the plan. Move Toby into my spare room for a week. No library hours posted, no check-ins, no social media posts. Nobody tracks a ghost if the ghost isn't online. I hesitated. That's a big ask. I don't even... She cut me off. This isn't an ask. This is a safety net. I've already got cots and an overnight bag list started. You just have to say yes. I looked over at Toby at the puzzle table, watching us with his shoulders bunched like a cornered dog. He was waiting to see if I'd fold or stand. I'll do it, I said finally. Pack what you need, buddy. We're staying with Ms. Page for a few nights. Paige gave a small nod like she'd already predicted it. Her fingers kept moving on the keyboard. When Dad showed up at my shop an hour later, he brought his old brass keybox and a stopwatch from his Air Force days. He set them on the counter without sitting down. Write the new routine and hand it to me, he said, and stop talking to people who speak in threat letters. I almost laughed at how he said it, like threat letters was just another form of weather you could plan around. But his eyes stayed hard. I pulled out my legal pad and started writing while he stood there timing me, his thumb resting on the stopwatch button like he was ready to start a drill. Paige takes the boy at 7:30 a.m., I said aloud as I wrote. I open the shop at 8, yeah. No calls from unknown numbers, no contact with Hazel without neutral ground, no answering Reed Carver. Dad nodded, scooped up the paper, folded it, and slid it into his breast pocket. That's better, he said. Now act like you mean it. I sat back, pen still in my hand, and watched him walk out with the same steady stride he's had my whole life. Paige texted a photo a few minutes later. Toby asleep on her couch, blanket pulled up, her cat curled at his feet. For the first time all day, I exhaled. Not relief, just a pause before the next hit. I was still staring at the clock when Paige's packet of links hit my inbox. Sample wording for a records request and direct URLs into the public permit viewer. No waiting. On the permits page, Hazel Grant was listed as co-signer on a seasonal use cottage at Brookside Lake Cottages, Lot 29. Filed in April. Final inspection signed off 12 weeks ago. Different mailing address. No mention of me. In the document viewer, there was a scanned clerk note from 2020. Ceremonial urn approved under exception code 4A. Transfer permit not submitted per cremation regulation. Symbolic placeholder only. They buried a damn prop. I clicked through every page with my jaw locked and eyes burning, like if I stared hard enough the ink would confess. Then a buzz from Taryn. No greeting, just a PDF attachment and a one-line text. From an old Equisure subpoena. The file opened to 6 pages, most of them blacked out. But one line was left in the clear. Clara Dent managed event invoices for Brend Import, Export False Front Charities. Not just hired, not just connected, managed. I grabbed my keys and drove south along the river, where Bren's old warehouse sat tucked behind a row of loading docks. I used to deliver banner orders there, big ones, always with tight deadlines and vague logos. The lot was half empty now. 2 pallets sat out in the open, both shrink-wrapped and stamped with routing labels for a private museum in Dallas, marked as exhibit pieces. I took photos, labels, crate numbers, shipping barcodes. I knew it wasn't enough, but my phone clicked anyway, like it needed something to do. I felt stupid standing there like I was part of some Netflix docuseries. But I wasn't trying to bust the ring open. I just needed truth. I sent the photos to Taryn and Paige at the same time. Paige replied in under a minute. "Those catalog numbers match a loss report out of Lisbon," she wrote. "I saw it last winter. We insured a sculpture loan. That serial prefix is Portuguese. That specific. That fast." As I headed back to the shop, my phone buzzed with an internal message from my front desk. New rush job just dropped. Catalogs for a wine and jewels fundraiser at the Oakmore Hotel near the plaza. Client listed as Clara Dent. 12 pages. High gloss. Mock-ups due Tuesday. The email signature came routed through a privacy service. The kind scammers and startups use to look legitimate. I stared at it for 10 seconds, then printed the job clean. Fonts aligned, bleed marks exact. I didn't short the quality, but I added 2 things. A hairline watermark Taryn could trace later if the feds needed it, and a numbering scheme only I'd recognize, subtle spacing in the footer digits, every 4th number off by half a point. Petty? Probably. But it was the one thing I still controlled. An hour later, Hazel sent a text from a prepaid burner. No name. Just, "She wants to meet you. She says she'll be transparent." A drop pin followed. A gated road near a lake community about 25 miles outside the city. I sat in my living room with my dad's brass clock ticking like a time bomb, and Paige's overnight bag list open on my lap. I kept reading things like extra socks, Tylenol, spare charger, like they mattered in the middle of this. Then I dialed the number back. *67. Blocked ID. When she answered, I didn't ask questions. I said her name the old way. Ivy. There was a pause. Then she said, "Let's set boundaries first," like she was onboarding a client. "I'm not bringing anyone," I said, "but I'm not coming blind either." She agreed. She toggled live location sharing on my phone to her device and to Taryn's. Then she started a voice memo and announced the call for personal legal accountability. The game was still about control. That much hadn't changed. After I hung up, I just sat there a second. Paige walked in from the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel. "You called her." I nodded. "She said she'll be transparent," I said, hating how even the word tasted like a spreadsheet. "You're walking into a setup," Paige said. "She doesn't do transparency. She does version control." "I'm not going for her," I said. "I'm going for answers." Paige walked out of the room, came back a minute later with 2 printed maps. She highlighted back roads in yellow marker, circled a gas station near the turnoff, then slid a portable charger into my jacket pocket, along with a travel sleeve of aspirin. "I already checked the cell dead zones," she said. "You're good for coverage until you hit mile 24. After that, go slow and don't be obvious." I looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't scared. She wasn't confused. She was ready. "You didn't have to do all this," I said. "Yes, I did," she said. "Because someone has to make sure you come back from this in one piece. I already lost enough library volunteers to grad school." That almost made me smile. Almost. I texted my dad the location and told him where the backup folder was in the shop safe. He replied with one line, "Make eye contact, speak low, keep your weight over your feet." Military speak for, "Don't flinch." I slipped the fundraiser mock-ups into a manila folder, clipped the photos from the warehouse on top, and slid the whole thing into my glove box. Taryn texted a thumbs-up emoji and the word "logged." Paige handed me a sealed plastic bag with a power bank, backup IDs, and a mini LED flashlight. Before I walked out the door, she pulled the door shut behind me and said, "If she says the word clarify, that's your cue to leave. That's her trigger word. It means she's rewriting something." I nodded. I didn't say goodbye. I just stepped out into the night with the weight of 5 years chasing me, and the sound of my son's voice stuck in my head. She smiled like she knew me, Dad. I was done hiding from that smile. Lot 29 sat just off a gravel road that curved like a spine through the back edge of Brookside Lake. It didn't look like a hideout. It looked lived in. There were plastic toys scattered on the porch, a trike with a cracked handlebar, wind chimes made from measuring spoons, and 2 potted basil plants by the window that didn't look neglected. The porch light was on, warm and yellow. Through the window, I saw a stainless steel coffee machine. Expensive, sleek. Same model we registered for back in 2012 and never could afford. I stepped onto the porch and knocked once. The door opened like she'd been standing right behind it. There she was. Cream sweater, hair pulled up and pinned, exactly the way it used to fall when Toby was teething and she'd try to keep it out of his grabby fingers. Same cheekbone, same posture, same eyes that never gave you what you needed unless there was value attached. She didn't hug me, didn't cry, just motioned me in like I was the electrician. The smell hit me halfway through the doorway, lemon cleaner. I wanted to laugh or throw something. Instead, I sat where she pointed. Small table, 2 chairs, notepad in the center. No decorations, no photos. She slid a mug toward me. I made the coffee this time. No decaf. I didn't touch it. She sat across from me and folded her hands. First, she said, like we were opening a project pitch. Scope and risk. I stared at her, mouth dry. I'm not here to write a proposal, I said. No, she agreed. But you're not here to scream either. So let's be adults. She leaned back, calm, practiced. Bren paid me a retainer, she began, voice even, to book hotel spaces, fill seats, build the paper trail. I didn't transport anything. I didn't touch the product. I managed rooms and meals and decor invoices. That's it. And the art? I asked. She didn't blink. He moved it in trunks labeled as stage decor. Lanterns, table runners, backdrops. I never saw what was inside. Procedures were my job, not ethics. Compliance. I wanted to flip the table. The memorial, I said. She took a sip of her own coffee like she'd been waiting for that one. Optics dictated a ceremonial vessel, she said. Real cremation required transfer forms, paper trails. The church had a loophole. Symbolic containers are acceptable for delayed transport cases. We used that. You called it delayed, I said, almost laughing. She never even died. She didn't argue, just shrugged like she'd solved a filing error. You exploit the seams, she said. Churches love procedure. Governments love boxes checked. No one questions the right forms if the folder looks thick enough. I picked up the mug, stared into it. The coffee was dark and steaming. I hadn't touched a cup she poured since 2020. And yet, out of habit or spite, I took a sip. It tasted like the past, like French roast and fake safety. She smiled when she saw me drink it, like she still owned that piece of me. Then she started talking about Evelyn. Not my Evelyn, not our daughter, just the girl. She's stable, she said, and very bright. I made sure of that. Children are assets with attachment points. You just need to know where to plug in. Something crawled up my spine. She kept talking. Her tone never changed. How Malcolm needed structure people could rely on. How Reed Carver kept the risk low. Legal buffers, blind contracts. How Hazel was too soft to handle her part. How Toby was always going to need structure you couldn't provide. My chair scraped the floor. I stood fast, almost knocked the table. My hands were shaking. I told myself it was panic, but it wasn't. It was something deeper, thicker, like a wave coming from inside my own ribs. She tilted her head, watching me closely. You're sweating, she said clinically. Is your heart racing? You put something in it, I said. You knew I'd drink it. She didn't deny it, just folded her hands again and watched my pupils like a lab tech. You always react emotionally first, she said. It's why you couldn't see the plan. I heard a door click, a whisper from down the hallway, then Paige's voice low and sharp. He's blue. Another voice, Dad, calm, steady, close. Heartbeats irregular. Call it in. The room tilted sideways. My head went heavy. I tried to step, but my foot missed the floor. Ivy, Clara, moved fast, reached toward my jacket like she was going for the keys. Then a blur of motion. My dad stormed in, gripped her wrist, yanked her backward with one brutal twist, and shoved her to the floor face first. She fought like she expected to win, screamed once. He didn't flinch, just locked her down with a knee on her spine and both arms pinned behind her. "You're done," he said. "You hear me? You are done." My vision tunneled, but I remember Paige kneeling beside me, pressing something cold to my wrist, whispering numbers. I remember the rattle of the medkit, the buzz of a phone line going open. And I remember her voice, flat and glassy, muttering from the floor. "You still don't understand the structure. You never did." Then everything went black. I woke up to fluorescent light and the sound of machines ticking like a slow metronome. My tongue felt like metal, my mouth like cardboard. Every breath scraped. A nurse leaned over me and said, "Don't try to sit up yet. We've got you on fluids. Your heart dipped too low for too long." She put a straw to my lips, and I sipped cold water that tasted like it came through a copper pipe. A doctor came in right behind her. Tall guy, gray hair, no clipboard. Just memory and a calm voice. "You had symptomatic bradycardia and hypotension," he said. "Vitals dropped fast. Classic beta blocker response. You're lucky someone called in when they did." I turned my head toward the doorway. Dad was standing under the wall clock, arms crossed, tie still perfect even though it had to be close to midnight. Like always, he showed up pressed and ready for war. Paige sat in the corner, hunched forward, still wearing a borrowed cardigan too big in the shoulders. Ink smudges ran along her forearm where she'd wiped her hands on instinct. I tried to speak, but my throat gave me gravel. "Where's Toby?" Paige answered before Dad could. "He's with the neighbor." I checked myself. "He's asleep on the couch, still wearing socks with robots on them." The doctor said whatever was in the coffee hit hard and fast, but it wasn't lethal unless paired with something stronger. Paige had been tracking my live location and noticed the delay. She didn't wait. She forwarded the pin to Taryn and to Dad. Called 911 before she even got in the car. Taryn had apparently looped in every acronym agency she could think of. Half of Kansas must have had eyes on that location by the time Dad slammed Ivy to the floor. I coughed and tried again. "Where is she?" Dad didn't move. "In holding. KCPD showed up before the ambulance got to the driveway. She's not getting out on her own." Paige added, "Reed Carver tried calling the desk. Dropped phrases like compliance dispute and contractual misunderstanding. They hung up on him." I wanted to laugh, but the machines beeped harder when I did, so I stopped. An hour later, Taryn walked in like she was visiting a nursing home. No blazer, just a hoodie over slacks and a taped-sided banker's box balanced on her hip. She looked at the nurse like she owned the room, signed something, and slid the box onto the tray table near my feet. "You're lucky," she said without opening it. Paige recorded that whole kitchen conversation. Her phone was in her pocket, mic up, crystal clear audio. She handed Paige a printed copy of the transcript, stapled and flagged. Paige didn't even blink. She flipped to a page and marked something with her thumb. Taryn turned to me and pulled out a folder from the box. "So here's what you're going to want to see," she said. "Discharge forms from Kansas Central, year 2020. One infant listed as released to you and Ivy. A second, discharged to mother only under confidential placement. No co-signature. That child's identity was later amended and re-registered as Evelyn Dent." I stared at the folder like it might explode. Taryn's voice didn't change tone. "Intent, Mr. Danner. That's what matters here." She flipped to a stack of emails, memorial arrangements sent from Ivy's shell company to the florist, the church, the catering vendor, all matching the name Clara Dent. One invoice was billed to a P.O. box in Topeka, traced to a virtual mailbox subscription. "You were handed a script," she said. "Everything was designed to keep you busy and in the dark." I looked at my dad. He didn't say anything, but I could see it hit him. Hard. I asked the next thing even though I didn't want the answer. "What about Brend?" Taryn raised her eyebrows. Malcolm's on the radar. Hard. Federal agents are watching his export paperwork. He's been moving antique textiles out of Beirut under a humanitarian relief wrapper. Your warehouse photos help tie the Dallas crate shipment to an event managed by Clara Dent. Same numbering, same design footprint. Paige opened her laptop and pulled up a reference sheet. I cross-matched his catalog images with the watermark variant you planted, she said. It worked. We caught the distortion curve. I closed my eyes, just for a second, and let the air fill my chest like I wasn't carrying a truck on it. Dad's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then held it out to me. Hazel, he said. I took the call. She was crying. I could hear it in the way her breath hitched before words landed. I'm so sorry, she said. I should have stopped her. I should have told you from the start. I didn't respond. I just let her talk. I'll cooperate with whoever needs me, she said. But I need to ask, can I see Evelyn? I couldn't answer. Not yet. Dad took the phone back. We'll work it out, he said. His voice didn't break. Not even once. Later, I signed a protective order request with a clerk over the phone. She asked for my full name, then paused and said, You're Harvey's son? From Troost? Your dad still brings coffee to the early voting volunteers. That's when I realized how much trust my old man had quietly built. No speeches, no flash. Just being steady when everyone else ran hot. That night, Ingrid from the after-school program texted, Hey, just checking. Toby asked if he should bring a card to his mom. Is everything okay? I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Then I put the phone down and counted to 40. Not fast, not slow, just enough to stay grounded. Taryn slid a paper across the bed tray. Final checklist. Meet with a juvenile advocate, secure guardianship documents, lock down shop camera backups, don't respond to Carver, do not meet anyone tied to Brend without a law rep present. At the bottom, she wrote, See? Checklists save lives. I nodded, not because it was funny, but because it was finally true. Back at the house, the kitchen table became mission control. Paige slapped quick labels on manila folders and slid them across the wood like a dealer laying down cards. Brend, Clara, Ivy, Hazel, Evelyn. Protective order. She clipped Post-its with colored dots to each one, then tacked a one-page printout of Toby's bedtime routine to the fridge. Snack, brush, 2 pages of reading. Questions okay if less than 3. She didn't say much, just moved with a kind of fast grace, like she was holding a rope together that everyone else had frayed. I checked the time, shut down my shop system remotely, and set the alarm for 9:20. Called 2 clients with calm, fake apologies about needing to reschedule their orders. Then I saw a text from my landlord. We still good for Friday? I typed, Yep, on time, and hit send. I wasn't sure that was true, but I had one more thing I could still control, Clara's last order. I ran the rest of her gala print job through the machine. 12 glossy catalogs, event header, wine and jewels for the World Arts Collective, same fake sparkle, same fake cause. But I left in my watermark. Subtle, invisible to the naked eye. Different spacing in the serial lines, just like the last batch. Then I sent a message to Taryn. Final run completed. Same markers. All yours. I didn't need to say more. Her people knew what to look for now. Later that week, the tip finally slotted into an investigation that was already humming in the background. While I sat in the dark eating dry cereal with my jacket still on, Taryn texted one word, moving. Later I saw the footage, agents moving quiet and fast through the loading dock of the Oakmore Hotel. No sirens, no shouting. They peeled open crates labeled lantern decor and found anything but lanterns, Turkish tiles, Roman coins, a few sealed packages marked as clergy gifts. My hand clenched the spoon hard enough to bend it. Next morning, Reed showed up at my shop. No appointment, no warning. Charcoal suit, no tie. Shoes that looked like they hadn't touched dirt in years. You've interfered with charitable operations protected under multiple jurisdictions, he said, tone flat but forceful. Your actions constitute legal overreach and potentially civil. I handed him the protective order. He blinked once, read the heading, and said, misunderstanding, 3 separate times. That's when my dad walked in, carrying a city envelope under his arm like it weighed nothing. You got a bar number, counselor? He asked, stepping between us. Reed turned halfway, muttered something about existing counsel already on file, and backed out without giving the number. Dad didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. The next call came from Taryn. Malcolm Brend is officially detained for questioning. Not charged yet, but the shipment tags from your photos gave them a path. That batch's origin was shaky before. Now it has fingerprints. I didn't say anything for a second. Then I asked, is Ivy talking? Not to me, she said, but she knows she's not in control anymore. That alone is doing damage. Later that day, Paige quietly emailed the church council, requesting clarification on the memorial paperwork. She included Ivy's alias and the cremation permit code. The sexton replied that the urn was confirmed symbolic only and attached a policy line. Contents may be provided at a later date if required by ceremonial family requests. The line wasn't signed. Paige forwarded it to Taryn and added one note in bold. There were no contents. Confirmed again. That same afternoon, Hazel showed up at our back door holding a shoebox wrapped in twine. She didn't ask to come in. She handed it over like she was handing off a confession. Inside, old sewing patterns, a prepaid cell, a single hotel key card, and a folded note on white printer paper. The handwriting was Ivy's. If something happens, Storage Unit 307, West Bottoms. I read it twice. Paige looked at me. Then Dad. I shook my head. We don't go alone. Taryn's reply came quick. Good. I'll meet you there. West Bottoms was cold and gray that day, the air smelling like cardboard and rust. The storage facility was mostly empty, chain-link gates inside a converted warehouse. Taryn logged the time, date, and chain of custody before we even reached the door. Clipboard in hand, she acted like it was a crime lab. Inside the unit, binders, vendor lists, invoices matching the gala jobs I'd printed, a thick ledger with rows of payment logs and codes. Taryn flipped to a page and tapped a set of initials, RC, next to 6-figure payments labeled consulting fees. Reed Carver, she said, right in the open. I kept looking. My fingers hit a plastic sleeve tucked in the back. Inside, a photo of Evelyn and Toby, sitting side by side at a library table, a coloring book between them. Toby was right. He hadn't imagined it. I held the photo like it was breakable. My chest didn't know if it wanted to crack open or collapse in. Let's get this logged, Taryn said, flipping open a fresh evidence bag. And then let's take a breath. She sounded calm. I didn't feel calm, but I did feel like we'd finally stepped ahead of the lie. The courtroom smelled like paper and stress. Cheap carpet, plastic chairs, 2 ceiling fans doing nothing. The first hearing, temporary orders, was fast, packed, and uglier than I'd pictured. I sat at the front, sleeves rolled, jaw tight. Hazel looked smaller than I remembered. She sat behind me, hands clutched in her lap, silent, eyes fixed forward like she wasn't sure what world she was in anymore. Ivy came in last, flanked by deputies, County Orange. Hair pulled back into something tight and harsh. She still walked like a manager, still held her chin like she was waiting for someone to say she was right. Her eyes scanned the room and stopped on me. She didn't blink. Reed sat beside her, calm and sharp in his charcoal suit, flipping through folders like this was a zoning board meeting. The judge was older. No robe fanfare, no theatrics. Just heavy-lidded eyes and a deep dislike for drawn-out nonsense. He started by reviewing the emergency petition, protective order, medical report from the hospital, audio file transcript from the cottage. He didn't react, just flipped pages like they bored him. Then he moved through the FOIA permit records and the chain of custody from the storage unit, tapping one paper twice with his pen. This was filed with a ceremonial urn listing, he said, and yet no crematory has a record of intake. You all understand how that looks? Reed stood up. Your Honor, we'd like to clarify. The judge raised a hand without looking up. Mr. Carver, don't say clarify. Just don't. He turned to me. Mr. Danner, do you believe you can provide a stable home for both children? I didn't hesitate. Yes, I do. No long answer. No filler. No hedge. I saw Dad behind me in the second row, hands folded, not smiling, but nodding, just once. Ivy stood, tried to soften her voice, but it cracked. There were misunderstandings, she said. I took certain protective actions in the interest of long-term emotional structure. I regret the miscommunications, but the judge didn't let her finish. Ms. Dent, your compliance language isn't helping you. Reed cleared his throat. There's clear prejudice in the public narrative here. We believe... Enough, the judge said. We're not debating spin. We're resolving care. He flipped through the birth records and pointed to the twin registry and the expedited DNA test, still in process. Pending that confirmation, I'm granting Mr. Danner temporary custody of Evelyn, with Hazel Grant's consent. He remains sole custodian of Toby Danner. The order landed fast and clean. A full hearing was set for the following month. This was a temporary order, not the end. Hazel got supervised visits with Evelyn if she remained cooperative. Ivy was barred from any direct or indirect contact with either child. Malcolm Brend was placed under a provisional stay-away, linked to both minors. No one in the room argued. The judge set the date and moved on. Before the gavel, the judge added, almost like it hurt to say it out loud, family is not a compliance tool. That line cut deeper than anything else that day. My ears went hot. Outside the courtroom, Taryn met me near the vending machines. They're stacking charges, she said. Wire fraud, conspiracy, endangerment, attempted poisoning, might hit federal court, maybe more. She looked at me. Don't gloat. It never ends clean. I wasn't planning to, I said. My hands are still shaking. They were. I could barely hold the paperwork. Paige picked up Toby and Evelyn from the neighbors and took them to the office supply store. They came back with matching notebooks. Dinosaurs for Toby, planets for Evelyn. Toby held his up and said, Paige doesn't baby talk. I like that about her. Hazel sat across from me at the kitchen table that night and asked if she could teach Evelyn how to thread a needle. I'll supervise, she added. I nodded. Yeah, we can do that. I moved a second chair next to them, close enough to see, close enough to breathe. Later, after the house was quiet and Paige had fallen asleep on the couch under a stack of toddler blankets, I went to the shop. I took the protective order off the counter and taped it to the wall next to the shop checklist. Then I rewrote the morning routine. Same boxes. Open, calibrate, deliver. But this time, it didn't feel like I was just keeping the roof from caving in. It felt like I was building something that might actually hold. Weeks later, the library was just the library again. Story time happened every Wednesday at 10, just like always. No hidden cameras, no suspicious flyers, no ghosts pretending to be storytellers, just Paige reading a book about raccoons that steal lunches. Toby laughed so hard his whole body shook, like his ribs had finally remembered how. Evelyn leaned into my side, her thumb hooked under the strap of her overalls, eyes glued to the page. She didn't speak much yet, not with strangers, but she didn't flinch when Paige handed her a sticker. That was enough for now. Malcolm's name showed up one night on the evening news, quiet bar across the bottom of the screen, suspect linked to trafficking in cultural property, no mugshot, no perp walk. But Taryn said he'd have his day. She didn't make promises, but she knew how to build cases that stuck. Reed never made it on camera, slithered sideways like I figured he would. Taryn said there were whispers about internal review, which sounded like lawyer speak for he's sweating. Meanwhile, I picked up a city contract to print flyers for a parks cleanup event. Small job, just a couple $100, but steady. Dad showed up to the shop at 7:58 on the dot. No announcement, just came in, swept the floor like he used to when I was 10, then straightened the staplers and sharpened the pencils. "Shop's too quiet," he said. "Needed to hear real paper again." Hazel stopped by in the afternoons. Not every day, but often enough that the kids started pulling up an extra chair without asking. One day she brought over a battered quilt, corners frayed, stitches uneven. "Started it when Evelyn was a baby," she said. "Didn't think I'd finish it." She didn't cry when she said Evelyn's name. Not anymore. And she didn't say Clara. Neither did I. Fridays, Paige cooked dinner. Nothing fancy. Just chili, cornbread, and a salad I pretended to like so the kids wouldn't copy my face. She still kept folders on her laptop labeled receipts and permits and kid schedules. When I teased her about it, she smirked and said, "You love lists more than I do. You just don't name them." She wasn't wrong. I still kept mine on yellow legal pads, but I didn't hide behind them now. When Toby wanted to show me a drawing instead of finishing his chore, I gave him 2 minutes. I used to tell him life was a schedule. Now I let him stretch it a little. The urn stayed on the shelf for a while, untouched, neutral. Then one Saturday morning I took it down, wrapped it in brown paper, tucked it into a bin I labeled 2015-2020. I didn't throw it out. I just didn't need to see it anymore. On our way out the door one Sunday, Dad paused in the entryway. He straightened his tie in the mirror, then looked at me and cleared his throat. "Paige is a good one," he said. "You were right to listen to her." I looked him in the eye. "I learned something from you too." He raised an eyebrow. "Steady isn't selfish. It's how you keep people safe." He snorted. "That's not exactly poetry, son." "Still true, though," I said. He didn't argue. That night, Paige set down a cup of tea and sat next to me on the couch. "About weddings," she said. "I don't need a big one. The kids will remember the ice cream more than the vows." I looked at her, then at the 2 kids playing with plastic dinosaurs on the carpet. Evelyn had lined hers up like soldiers. Toby was teaching his to dance. "I'm good with that," I said. "We've had enough spectacle." She reached over, took my hand, and didn't let go. And just like that, the house finally felt like it belonged to all of us. What would you have done if the person you buried 5 years ago suddenly showed up alive? Would you confront them or walk away? If this story hit you, leave a comment and tell us your thoughts. Even just writing "great story" really helps the channel. And if you liked it, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's just one click for you, but it means a lot to us.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.